Salary program, Mr. Brockman.
Hi, everybody. So I'm going to pass these out and talk at the same time. The current platform that we're utilizing for our cyber program only allows us to go down to the 6th grade. Our platform is, the platform that we're using is going away next year anyway, so moving on into the future, it's not really going to be an issue, hopefully. The one thing that I will say is that over the last couple of months, there has been a growing need for us to try to service the students who are in the K through 5 bandwidth with cyber services. Right now, we don't have anything. None of the things that we utilize, the program that we utilize will not afford us the opportunity to actually provide an education through cyber services in that bandwidth. And so, I reached out to this company, it's Waterfront Learning. They're based out of the Allegheny Intermediate Unit. And they drew up a contract proposal which will provide cyber services for the students in the K-5 bandwidth. Just to give you some numbers, currently, and I ran this on Monday, there are 116 students who are choosing a cyber charter provider in that bandwidth. And so that's 116 of our students who are choosing to go outside of the district. Considering the tuition rates that we have right now for cyber charter, the regular rate is a little bit over $9,000 and the special ed rate is about $18,000. This program will afford us to get some of those kids back. The cost breakdown for us is $2,200. It will wind up being about $2,200 for the rest of the school year per student. What this contract would allow us to do is it would allow our students to access a Pearson curriculum platform through the Allegheny Intermediate Unit. The Allegheny Intermediate Unit would provide a teacher. So it wouldn't be one of our teachers, but it would be a licensed teacher through the state. Outside of the tuition that we would be charged by this group, the only additional requirement from us is to provide technology for the student. The student does have an IEP. They would remain on our caseload. We would have to provide teachers to write the IEP, but we would get progress monitoring updates from their teacher out of the Allegheny Intermediate. The terms of the contract are pretty straightforward. If we don't use it, then it doesn't cost anything for us. So the only charge comes once we enroll a student in this program. And the back page actually has the cost breakdown, and there's an arrow next to ours, the one that we would do, because they have a long hosted services. The other side of this is that when we have students who unfortunately have been disciplined and cannot remain in our schools, this provides us another opportunity outside of just utilizing the SELF program for those students. This would give the parents a different choice. So instead of them wanting to enroll in SELF, we can at least provide this type of education if they so chose. Currently, there is a 5th grade student who would like to access this type of education, and so it came to the forefront a lot faster than I thought it would. It's not going to be, I believe, it's not going to be up for a formal vote tonight. I have been given reassurances from the company today on the phone that if that student, we wanted to enroll that student before a formal contract was signed, that they would allow that student to access the program before a formal vote.
So just ask a question. So in other words, this isn't a company. This is an IU, like we have an IU that's providing a service for the Allegheny area, and they're expanding what they want to be able to provide to other districts.
Correct.
So it's not a charter, it's not a separate charter or nothing like that?
No, it is not.
Okay. And our IU does not
They do not
provide anything like this?
No. RIU got out of the cyber school business about 2 years ago. I believe in talking with the people who run it through RIU, there's only one district left that falls in their boundary, that they are working with that school district to provide cyber services.
RIU set that up years ago and used that as a moneymaker instead of a way to help save school districts money. And that's a big reason why they accumulated $20 million they had to pay back to the school districts in the region.
So how did this come about? Just asking the question. How did this come about? They came to you, you came to them, you saw a need, you know.
I saw the need because the principals approached me, and then I reached out to, so this intermediate unit utilizes the Pearson Connections platform. So I reached out to, who happens to be the same provider that we use for 6 through 12. It's the parent company. So I reached out to them, asking if they had something that they would be able to offer us, just as a stopgap. She said, we really can't do it, and then she got me in touch with this intermediate unit.
You said $2,200 a year.
Mm-hmm. The arrow,
Going to be $1,100 a quarter.
yeah. Considering where we are in the school year, we're only really looking at the 2 quarters.
You're just saying.
Yes, yes. Once again, this is a stopgap measure so that we can provide this type of education for the remainder of this year. We are inviting 6 vendors in, and we're going to do a true vetting process on what we'll utilize next year. But this is just, we know that there's a gap, and so it's how can we fill the gap for the remainder of this year, and the next year moving forward, we'll have a comprehensive, hopefully a comprehensive K-12 platform.
Do we have any ambitions of trying to tackle this on our own level, or are we going to be farming this out forever?
It's a good question.
Thank you.
It is. The truth is that we probably started making our own platform when the cyber school was adopted in 2012, and probably by now we would have a decent platform. I could definitely look into what it would take to create one with our own curriculum. I mean, the truth is that we do have experts in curriculum, and it would just be a matter of having somebody from the IT department help with setting up of the framework.
Yeah, I'd like to see that explored.
I agree.
Thank you.
Do we use Pearson at all anymore in the school district? Because we used to.
I don't believe so. It's not to my knowledge.
So we have 116 kids right now that could potentially fit into the program that we want to bring for the remainder of this year.
Correct.
Are we looking to make, but we want an official one right now? That actually wants to use it right now?
Yes, right now we have one. We have not advertised this. We have not really let the public know that this exists, that this possibility even exists. It happened to come up in conversation at a hearing that we had yesterday. And so this is what they chose to do. That's what they wanted. So I know that we have one.
If we do decide to go forward with this, then we have a plan is to kind of go after that 116? Right.
The truth is that the total is 548 who are choosing outside cyber charters in general. That's just K through 5. So the total population is close to 550, and so there is we're going to attack all 550.
I thought that there was wasn't there an effort before to go? Yeah, I know. I thought that was right. What happened to that?
It was not this past school year, but it was the one before that.
Yeah.
The summer of 16, 17.
Right.
We sent home flyers, made phone calls to every single person that we knew was in the 6 through 12 grade band, saying, hey, we got our own cyber program. Why don't you come join us? I think we got about a dozen back.
Okay. There was already efforts to do this, so I just wondered what happened to them.
Well, how many do we have in our cyber program currently?
162.
162. So now when we do have students that look to go to a cyber charter option, we we have that to offer before they leave.
Before they leave, you don't have to invite them back. Okay, that sounds good.
So we'll only pay for the kids that are gonna utilize it. So then this bill, if we have, the 548, the 116, whatever we're looking at, and we only have one kid enrolled, but we do sign this contract, are we gonna be held accountable if we can't get any of these kids back this year?
Nope. The district would only be obligated to pay for students who use the program.
Very nice.
So do you need anything from us at this point?
It'd be nice if we could get a head nod tonight, if everybody's comfortable with us proceeding, we can start to lay the groundwork in hopes of bringing the formal vote to you in January. Now give us an opportunity to get this, the fifth grader at least started on the program.
Anybody else have any other questions?
And then, in the meantime, we're looking at firms for comparison.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'll say yes. John? Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. We'll move on to K-4 sanctuary-based learning, Ms. Knackman.
Good evening, everyone. Well, I just want to preface by saying that we have to open another emotional support classroom somewhere first. Because we're actually happening right now with our emotional support programs, but this is something that we'd like to do instead of opening another emotional support classroom in one of our elementary buildings, because we need one at the K-5 setting. We wanted to open another SDLP program. That's a program we currently run in conjunction with CERB out of the St. Anne's building. We run it for grades K to 12. We'd like to open one for K to 5 because we do have a need. So I'll start with this fact sheet here about the SDLP program. On this side, Mrs. Habersky, if you would start the financial piece, and on the other side. The reason why we think that's the better option is because twofold. We have some students that are right now in our regular ed settings that are not being successful. They have an emotional disturbance, but they're not being successful in the regular education setting, despite pulling out all the stops. Parents are working together with teachers, with principals, with our special ed staff. It's just, they need something more intensive. But we don't have room in our current emotional support program, so we need to open another one. On the other side of that, we have kids in our emotional support program who are also not being successful. They need a higher level of care. They've been through the MH system in the community. So they've been to Sarah Reed, they've been in partial hospitalization, they've been to Community Country Day, haven't been successful there, they come back to us, we do the best we can. What we'd like to do is open a K-5 SDLP program. And Neil is the boots on the ground person at St. Anne's. He can talk to you a little bit more about the sanctuary model and tell you what that's like on a day-to-day basis and talk about the cost breakdown.
So the sanctuary model is based on Dr. Bloom, and it's based on the 7 commitments of sanctuary. And so since I don't have these memorized, I'm just going to read them. Nonviolence, emotional intelligence, social learning, open communication, democracy, social responsibility, and growth and change. The biggest aspect that I could talk about as far as what happens in the SDLP classroom is that it's all about accountability and expectations. And that's the biggest thing that everybody says. Every student is expected to meet the expectations of the adults that are in the room, and that is the hard line that we pretty much draw with every single student that is there. The classroom setting is smaller. The instructors and behavior staff that will be in the room, that are currently in the room with the 6 to 12 population, are all sanctuary trained. They are employees of Sarah Reed.
What we like about this program is that they really tailor the program to meet the needs of our students, educationally, behaviorally, with regard to mental health supports. They really tailor it to the needs of the individual student. We did have this program isn't new. We've had it with Sarah Reed for a couple of years. Prior to that, it was called the ITP program, the Intensive Treatment Program, and we ran it with another community provider. but they were continuing to struggle to meet the needs of those students because of their intense level of need, and they kept upping the price. They wanted more and more resources, and they kept upping the cost. I can't recall if Sarah Reed approached us or if we approached them, but they were willing to give us a lot more for a lot less through the sanctuary model. That program, we've been running it now with them for a couple of years. It's been really successful. These are kids who, in the community programs that they've been in previously, the partial hospitalization programs, they've recommended residential treatment for those kids. And parents, especially kids, of elementary age kids, they don't want their kids in residential treatment. So, we're doing the best that we can to service these kids and provide them whatever supports that we can provide. But some of the kids we've referred have been really successful in the SBLP program. What would happen is some of our higher need kids that are already in our emotional support programs, we would refer them to the SBLP program. That would leave space in our ES programs for some of the kids that are in regular ed right now who really need a higher level of support. So that's what we're proposing.
Question?
And how are we going to identify these students?
Well, they're already identified. Glad Jim brought it on. We already know who these kids are. It's just that the teams have been talking about what they need, but we haven't formally held the IEP meetings because we know once we do that, we have to make that transfer pretty quick.
Do we know how many students that is?
We could serve up to 12 in one classroom. We have about 6 students right now who are identified that we would start with.
If we're going to Sarah, are these our teachers or Sarah teachers?
No, this is Sarah teachers.
Sarah teachers.
And we provide transportation for them?
We do.
So this is the same program that was in Lincoln?
The same program that was in Lincoln?
That was South. That was South.
Yeah, that was. It would be located right now. It would be located in the same location that Silk is located in. That's another thing that we like about this program, being with Sarah Reed, is that it's also in the St. Anne's building. Neil is there, to kind of oversee the day-to-day operations. Our special ed staff goes in to work with the Sarah Reed staff and the parents and the kids to try and make sure that they're on track. It's been working out really well for us, and so we really feel that it would be beneficial to our students and to our district to open a K-5 program.
Anything else?
I think this is a great opportunity, and I really think that the sanctuary model is something that it's not going to go away, that most of our schools should probably be looking at bringing it in some way, because our kids do face a lot of trauma, and I don't think that the classrooms here are going to be smaller, they're just going to continue to get bigger. So I think this is a great model to start with, I really do. And so I'm especially curious to see how this plays out, and I'd love to be more included.
Great, awesome, thank you.
I also have to say from my experience that I'm excited that we're starting this. I think it's something we needed.
Okay. Nothing else? Thank you. (2016, 17) financial results. David?
So, in front of everybody should have a 16-17 budget summary. Kind of use that to guide our discussion here. Basically, what this document is, it's going to be comparing our 16-17 budget, which is that first column numbers, to our 16-17 actual revenue expenses in that second column there. The third column shows us any variance to the budget, positive numbers being favorable, any revenue above our budget or expenses below our budget, the negative numbers being unfavorable, like variances, and then the last column is the percent variance that we have to the budget in total. The revenue group up top there, you'll see that in total we budgeted for about $187 million in revenue. It came in with $187.7 million in revenue, so about a $760,000 favorable budget variance of about 0.4%, so very slim margin that's favorable, but it's favorable nevertheless. Excuse me, in the box in the bottom left-hand corner there, kind of some detail of some of the larger budget variances which really caused that $700,000 excess there. Two main items that were above the local grants and contributions, about $700,000 out. That's really related to the community schools grant that came in there. That wasn't really developed in the original budget because it wasn't, that information really wasn't available at that time when the budget was created. The second line, the transportation subsidy, kind of twofold, two reasons why that was really over budget. One of them being that the usage for transportation was up a little bit more, so that's part of it. And the other part is that there was an audit done for these school years for 2012, 13, and 14 that netted us about an additional $300,000 of revenue in that line, which really wasn't expected to come in when the budget was developed. One line item came in really below budget there on the revenue side for a larger amount there, the federal access subsidies. And that's really, as the district provides certain medical stuff, we get a subsidy for that from the state. And they set that money aside and basically an account for us that we could then draw down on. We just didn't draw down as much as we were budgeted for. So that's something in 17, 18, we might be a little over budget on that as we draw more related to last fiscal year and the current fiscal year there. So those really those are the three main things that caused the additional $700,000 of revenue there. Some other small variance of about $100,000 came out there. Any questions on revenues before discuss expenses?
This does anticipate the 14 million.
This is all on last year, so nothing with the 14 million at all. So this is 16, 17 financial results. So this includes the $4 million of educational access funding, which you did get. So that is in here, but nothing with the 14 million since this would be last fiscal year there. So moving on to expenditures, again, about $187 million of budget for expenditures. Came out with $183 million basically at the end of the year. So a favorable budget variance of $3.7 million, or 2% overall, which again, very small margin, a little more than the 0.4% we saw in revenues, but still very slim variance to the budget there, but a favorable one also. The box in the bottom right-hand corner has the large expense variances on there. Three of those, which are really called personnel costs, are the salaries, health insurance, and then a couple lines down, you've got the retirement ones. Those three added together comes to about $2.8 million, the largest portion of that. The salaries really being below budget is really a result of a lot of the retirements that happened over the 16-17 year. Not really sure of the timing of when the retirement's going to happen, how it was budgeted, and really expensed those wages all year long. So since retirements happened earlier in the year, there was some savings in that regard there.
If you recall, this budget year is the year that we actually eliminated 10 central office positions along with some support positions related to those. And really what happened is that the savings came in better than we anticipated for those budget cuts.
So as salaries comes in below budget, you would expect your retirement to come in below budget also, because retirement is really just a product of your salaries expense. Then the other personnel costs being health insurance, are about $1 million below budget there. And that's something that, to develop the budget amount for that, really developed a trend off of the previous year's activity for over the last couple of years, developed a trend that we really think was going to be hit there. So we budgeted really to that trend, and what we see, since we are self-insured, meaning we pay the claims as they're incurred by the district employees, it's something that is not an exact science every year. Some years we might be above the trend, some years we might be below. This year we just happen to be below. We definitely think that trend is still going to continue. Our health insurance costs are definitely going to continue to rise. That's just an industry thing that is happening now, so we think that trend is still going to hold out strong. We just happen to be below that trend this year. Any questions on those personnel costs before we move on to the other remaining ones there? I'll the other three pretty quickly. They're fairly small. Supplies, savings of about $400,000 to the budget. Really, that's kind of the beginning of a concerted effort that the district has had to really use inventories and really assess inventories that we have instead of ordering more things as we need them. Utilities being below budget. There was a very light winter, which had a decrease in consumption. We have good electrical rates that were locked in that ended up helping us beat our trend, we think, for that. And then the final one, charter school tuition. We're about $300,000 below our budget on there, which is about 1.3% of the charter school tuition budget. again, that's something that we trended out, and we just happened to beat that trend by a little bit this year. So all those things really added together combined to about the $3.8 million below our budget in expenses. When we combined our both favorable budget variances, we have about $4.5 million surplus for the 16-17 fiscal year. So a very good thing overall then. That $4.5 million basically eliminates the negative fund balance that we had at 4.7 coming into this year. So we have a negative fund balance as we came into the 17-18 fiscal year, just about $200,000. So almost nothing for a district our size. We should be, from the last discussions we had with the auditors, we should be getting a draft of the audit to really be presented and approved at the January board meeting. So this is just sort of a preview of the bottom line result that we're going to have in the audit there. Any questions on this? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Move on, Mr. Nixon.
Apologize, I neglected to include on the agenda tonight, Mr. Nixon's going to do, in addition to the Student of the Month, also share his workforce diversification plan for tonight, in the hopes that we can start moving on that for our spring items.
Thank you. Well, good evening, everyone. Sorry.
Good evening.
So the first thing, there's two initiatives that I'm going to share with you. The first is going to be, which falls under the SWIBIS model, or School-Wide Positive Behavior Intervention Support Model. This is something that, and just in conversations with different administrators and people, that there used to be a time when the board acknowledged, like did a Student of the Month acknowledgement around honor roll and certain things like that. But what I was looking for is to create this, what's called the stick-to-itive stair climber. And the stair climber basically comes from our, our logo, which shows, a kindergartner walking in, going up the stairs and walking out as a graduate. So thank you. You're welcome. So basically, I'm just kind of thinking around what's a good theme to support our Erie Public Schools. And so stick-to-itive, for those people, just for clarity, means to be like resolute or tenacious, to have resolve and see something through. So basically, the different points that you have here, the idea around it was to have each building do a building-wide vote. So anyone from teachers, cafeteria workers to principals, get the whole building on board to vote a student that has made a tremendous change in their attendance, in their classroom performance, and in their positive behavior. And so what I'd be asking for is for each building to submit a name by like the third Wednesday of the month, and that would give me the ability to then put the award together, which we're looking at doing something fairly simple on cardstock, clean it up with a nice presentation, have it in a frame, and then we would like to do something to bring the parents into the fold. I know in a lot of conversations that I'm having with different buildings about the achievement gap, a lot of teachers see the need for us to embrace families and parents and to get parents involved. And so what I thought would be nice is if we have these 15 students, so one student per each of our buildings, and we could have the parents and the students as well as an administrator from one of the buildings be there, and we could do some type of event such as a breakfast, a lunch, or a dinner. I really want to leave it up to the board to kind of think this through a little bit about what they would like to see. But we would be able to celebrate and honor those 15 kids every month, or where you see fit as far as the time frame. I did talk to Mr. Petronger about this earlier in the week, and he did like the setup of it and thought it was a positive outcome that we could have. So, but I wanted to present it to you and let you guys get a chance to look at it. So, a couple of questions that I did put down below was what's the best time frame for the award, and then the other one would be what's the best time frame for the ceremony. Meaning, do we want to do something every month? Do we want to do something quarterly, semesterly? That would be one part. And the other aspect would then be what would you guys be willing to do as far as voluntarily coming in and doing maybe, like I said, a lunch, breakfast, or a dinner. So that was what I wanted to present to you tonight.
I think that if you want to do it every month, there's enough people that go around and come to support what you're trying to do. I mean, as far as even with board members or even administrators, so I would think student of the month would be a good motivation for the buildings. I think that a breakfast would be nice for the kids. You know, they always usually, you know, get the same type of breakfast. Whenever we get like a special breakfast and start the day off right with some type of recognition and, you know, with administrators eating with them in the morning, that would be something nice, I think.
Nothing.
For each school individually, is that what we're doing?
No, it'd be all 15 at once.
All 15 together.
Yeah. It gives us an opportunity also to talk to the parents. That's why I thought it'd be nice, maybe on a Saturday morning or something, have a breakfast, we can meet and greet the parents, we can do the awards, stuff like that, just to get to know, you know, the parents and the kids a little better.
You could do a brief summary. We were talking about maybe roughly an hour, hour and a half, you know, basically have everybody come in, you know, just kind of socialize, talk a little bit, have some breakfast, and then get into kind of what it is to be stick-to-it, what to be a stick-to-it Stairclimber, what is it all about, what does it represent, and then we could get into the actual awards and having students come up, and then that's it. You know, a quick event, but just something to acknowledge and kind of get that flow of that positive mentality, positive behavior thinking, and then tying it in and bring the families at the table, to bring the parents to the table. So. Good.
Would there also be a way to do that publicly with their peers as well? So would these students be recognized within their school somehow?
I mean, because it's up for discussion. I mean, it was just kind of an
Just the more
idea.
recognition they get, the better.
You're thinking of doing it at each particular
Not
building?
necessarily, or is there a way that we could take this and show it to the students in the district so that they are recognized in a even broader?
I mean, it's something we could do like during a presentation if we wanted to tape it and put it on Channel 8.
Yeah.
You know,
Or even recognizing that our monthly board
we
meeting.
could do that.
I think that would be the best idea. You can put it on Channel 8, but just give them recognition, just like how we do the kids, when they do the Pledge of Allegiance, we can recognize the student of the month.
If you have 15 kids per, that's how this is gonna go, so there'd be 15 kids per one for each school.
Yes.
And I think that, you know, like a group photo of those 15 at the board meeting would be something that they would, you know, and then each kid gets the photo that they were a part of this group, that, you know, and it could, I think that would be.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point with Channel 8. I mean, we could always run, that's our own, you know, district production, so we could actually just run, we could take pictures and run that, and kind of cycle that all throughout the month, and then have a new batch of 15. So, I mean, that's a great point. The other piece I'm going to talk to you about is the action steps that the Equity and Inclusion Committee, and if I could, there's about 15 members that have put this together, but these are the action steps to support diversifying the teachers of Erie's Public Schools. So a few of those members are here tonight, and so I just want to make sure that you're aware. So I did ask them to be here to be part of this because you know, we did run this past you once before at the board retreat, so you have seen it. But since for about 3-4 weeks, it's definitely changed. I've merged some pieces, and I also had a couple other people come to the table about it. So, but I wanted to make sure that you guys were aware of that. So what I'm going to do is just kind of take you through, and if anybody wants any extras, there's some more here. But basically, the first step, step one. Would be to focus on our homegrown approach. In a lot of conversations and looking at some of the research of other districts that are doing this, a lot of people are targeting at their own students and, you know, building a relationship with them and building a program with them that they go on to, you know, a 4-year university and then circle back into the school district with a guarantee to put in some years. So that's something that already took place, has already been taking place through Erie High School's Early Childhood Development Magnet. It actually started works of this at East High School last year, and I know Jill Crable had a lot to do with this program, and so I know she's here tonight, and if she wanted to speak up at all, she can. But so they are doing a lot of this work. The students currently go through 2 courses. They do a field placement at one of our own pre-Ks and then come out. They complete this course, they can earn 9 credits at our local universities. So that's something that's already been established and been in place. So, and there's discussion on future education magnets as well. So I see this as the first step to an immediate solution to really bring our own students that will be, homegrown, raised in Erie, know the ins and outs, go through, move on to post-secondary, and then circle back in. One of the big pieces that I feel is going to be really strong with this first step is to build that mentorship. So what I was thinking is, as we have teachers that are teaching the coursework and they're building relationships with these kids, as they move on to the local universities, they can continue that relationship and that mentorship. And then anytime we get a new teacher, we already do put there's already a mentorship that takes place. So it's already like a process that already takes place now. But just thinking that one person sticks with that kid for a period of, whatever, 4 to 6 years, and then that kid circles back in as an adult, as a teacher, and then you still have that relationship already built, and that becomes their teacher leader, so to speak, to help mentor them in their new position. One thing that's taken place, as I mentioned, a couple new pieces have came up. As you look here on the front, in the second column going across, talking about the post-secondary, the 9 credits, right underneath that is the Frederick Douglass Scholars Program. I've had communication with Ron Wilson from Edinburgh University, and what is just a great event that's come to the table is that in conversations with him, he has presented that through this Frederick Douglass Scholarship Program, that we would be able to support 15 to 25 students with 4 years of a full ride, a four-year full scholarship. So 15 to 25 students through this Frederick Douglass Scholarship Program, we could guarantee 15 to 25 students a scholarship. And so that's huge, because that wasn't there when I presented this the first time around. And so thinking about that and seeing where we're at with our students, if there are some students that are finishing up coursework through Erie's High Magnet currently, we could have that money right there available for them. So I just thought that was a huge piece, because real quick, that was a big part, was the finances and the resources, and how are we going to really put teeth to this to make this happen. So I just thought that was an excellent piece to merge in with Edinburgh and to have that scholarship available.
Ken, would those scholarships be tied to coming back to Erie? So if you get this, then you don't have to pay us back, but if you get this and you go elsewhere, then you have to pay us back. Is that the way that it's going to play out?
So the scholarships are strict, or the Federal Douglass campaign is a campaign that is run throughout all of the Pennsylvania state schools. So all the schools have this throughout their individual university. And it basically has 5 different parts. I'm not going to drag you through all that, but they have to have 5 different components to support this program. So the monies are supported through that Frederick Douglass Scholarship Program. So that would be the university's monies that would be supporting the students. So the time with that would be the agreement that student finishing, getting those 9 credits, already having that agreement there, having scholarship monies, and then circling back. That's what we would make the guarantee. We would make an agreement that they would come back into our school district for a period of 1 to 3 years, so that we can monitor them and see what type of teacher they can become or they will be for us. And with new teachers to the district, they have 6 evaluations. So that's where we look at that process, that we can either say, yeah, this is a good person, they're going to make tenure and stick with us, or at that point we would be working with them and they wouldn't be a good fit for our school district. But that would be the tie back in.
Mr. President? Yes.
All I'd like to ask is if in the middle schools, I mean, now that we have the early development in the high school, we have that program. In the middle schools, can we have some attempt at inspiring kids, inspiring our kids to become teachers? Yeah. For that reason, I mean, like I've always said, we own the factory, so the more time that we can if you grab a kid when he's in 8th or 9th grade and say, you would make a great teacher, and that kid hears that, sometimes you don't know when that'll catch, and then if that's the aspiration, then we have a way for him or her to become that teacher. I think that'd be very, very important.
And that is addressed under the step 4 is about shifting the community's mindset to education first. I think a lot of us know that education has kind of taken a backseat. Where a lot of families and that, over time, we talk about the value of the teacher and how important teachers are, but were, years back. and now, that's the mindset we want to shift. So that is in the plan, talking about having counselors going and having conversations and lining up with a couple other programs to just help keep pushing that, model that we want to push towards the field of education. Is there any other questions for the first action plan? So homegrown of our own students moving in. As you see on that second page, looking at the second column on the second page, there is a way of once students finish up that we can circle them back in under Act 86. That helps students that are graduating from our local universities to become employed in our districts. So that's a new part that helps us out. And Teresa Zumangala has been very supportive with Patty Ciarelli, who's our recruitment coordinator or recruitment person for HR. She's at the table and helping me assist with some of these steps. If you look at that last column, I did mention a couple other programs. So the TRIO programs such as Go College, Upward Bound, the Talent Search program. I had conversations with Carol Upseld, Barb Priestap, who represents Go College. Carol Upseld represents the IE5. And also Danny Jones, who represents GCAC, because these different programs like Upward Bound Math and Science, we can ask them to continue to push some of that message on making education important. So just to let you know, that's the other piece to helping supporting the students that are in our buildings, because all these programs see our students and work with our students, as well as, Ron Swanson at Erie High School. He does a lot with like a career guidance counselor, but just asking different people to keep pushing that message. Step 2 is regarding recruiting people that are already professionals, that are already degreed, or already professionals that are already within our community, and looking at encouraging them into the fields of education or moving them to think about alternative certification. And this kind of came about just in conversations with different people and knowing that we have a push to help diversify our teaching staff. There's people that are in have criminal justice degrees that are working at like M&L Thomas or Harvard Creek Youth or different agencies such as that would have that passion to want to get back into the field of education. So just how do we do that? Again, in those conversations with the gentleman from Edinburgh, those monies as part of the scholarship could be afforded to some of the adults as well that want to circle back in. So it doesn't just have to be high school students. So there's another piece that we could work on. But this is a program that we would look to instill. It's kind of based on Teachers for America or Future Leader Incubator, which is a lot of students that may have not finished school or have a degree but want to pursue education. These companies help them build alternative certifications. So we're looking at how can we tie in with the local universities and use our own resources and our own teaching staff to help support some of these already degree people that want to come back in the fold of education. Any questions regarding the second part? So basically, when I first went in this past year, there were 5 steps. Basically, merged the alternative certifications in with the degree professionals because it made a good mesh because that's what we're looking at. So that some of you might have remembered the 5. That's why it's 4. We did have conversations around with any of the student teachers or field students that we have that would be working their way back into the program. Via alternate certification. We talked with the directors of the department chairs for field and student placements, and those conversations were that they can help us monitor students that are in student teaching or working their way up to student teaching and make sure that they will be good candidates. Because, trying to get people before they extend all the way 4 years or they get themselves in student teaching and they're just not a real good fit, into that field. That's another piece too. Is there any questions regarding that? Okay. Again, a lot of these, as you see, do have that piece of if we're going to make a commitment and an agreement for that individual, just like the homegrown approach, and they're going to come in, they're going to be supported with some of the aspects of our district. They're going to go on, pursue the coursework, and then come back in. We would be able to make an agreement that they would be able to come back into our district for that period of 1 to 3 years. The third step is the teacher substitute or teacher search. So in conversations, again, sitting at the table with Patty Ciarelli for Human Resources, we talked about using a 3-hour approach So having a 3-hour radius, and in that, you can kind of see in the first column, looking at targeting these individual cities from New York, Ohio, and PA, but kind of using that kind of layered, the onion approach of starting with like 30 minutes out, and what areas could we find substitute teachers or future teacher candidates, where can we find some of those people, and then branching out. And we had conversations such as just advertising in their local newspaper so that they know there's a need and that Erie Public Schools is hiring and bringing people back in that way. Some of the parts that we discussed was how are we going to sell ourselves? How are we going to make Erie a place that people want to come to? And that's another reason why we targeted some of these areas with New York and Ohio and PA, because we want to have similar cities, similar aspects of the cities that people are used to, and they would be comfortable to come to Erie. The other part to that is, out of all those, I don't know if anybody actually has a beach. So I mean, we have the ability to have Presque Isle, which is a big piece, and that's a selling point. But in conversations, as you see down necessary resources, we talked about, there's a lot of teachers that we have in our own district that own homes, and would be able to make that a connection for anybody that would be coming into our district. We could set up a program that they could have housing. We would already have, like, for example, Erie Insurance does that now. They have housing for their new employees that come in, so it makes it that comfort piece. HUD program, the HUD runs a program called Officer Teacher Next Door, and this is something where somebody they would move into this house, they take care of the house, and it's theirs as they move through, unless they choose to leave. If they choose to leave, then they choose to pay for it. But that's another program that we could utilize to help support some as we move into the city. GTAC has a lot of different services that take place that could be supportive for new people to our city, as well as talking to places like LECOM and the Y and Nautilus to help just build a good package to bring people in. We also mentioned teaming up with some of the local organizations such as the police department, the city departments, and the hospitals. What are they doing right now to go out and recruit people of color into their workforces, and could we merge and work together? Is there anything else regarding that? Okay, step 4, which is the last step, is really around, again, we talked about, Mr. Fabrizi alluded to this, is getting that community shift, changing the mindset, getting a growth mindset to shift thinking towards education, putting education number 1 again. And so we talked about how do we do this. Surveys, you can survey students. Currently we use what's called Career Street, or as a career survey. We can focus on what's trending, we could actually use that as a system to monitor the trends that are going on with our students, where our careers are at, and we can kind of see if we're actually making a push towards education through that survey. The other part to that is just encouragement. So EPS staff, if we start to get that message to our students at a young age with our counselors, they could have meetings and just talking with students and encouraging them into the field of education. That can help start to change that mindset. We talked about merging with some of those local programs. Again, the TRIO program with the Go College Upward Bound is helping to push that message. Involving the parent community with information and getting them to come around. We talked about doing forums at the 4 community centers, holding up open public forums that are discussing education. Having people such as yourself just discussing, why are you at the table? What's important? Why do you feel that this message about education is so critical? And just getting people to start understanding that the importance of a proper education, good education. We also discussed doing a citywide public interest survey. You could go through areas such as the courthouse and county health departments, and thinking about those. We have a major influx of the refugee camp populations, and making sure that those families have access to the survey as well, so we can get a good read on what people feel about education in our city. So those are the 4 steps. Like I said, some of them have diminished, some of them have gotten a little stronger, but this ultimately has been passed at least 50 or more sets of eyes. And I got to thank the Equity Inclusion Committee, because that first October meeting, we put a lot of this in place, and I feel we have a pretty strong and strategic document that we can move forward on. Anybody else want to speak to anything about that? I'm sure everybody's probably eyes are glossed over, sorry.
Great job, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I'll give it back.
Thank you. I wore it just for you, thank you.
Just one other quick item before we go into executive. I put at your table here a proposal for performance back. This is the company that we've been talking about to help us facilitate our strategic plan. And just as a reminder, the reason why, we're looking to recommend this company is because they've had a lot of experience working with school districts our size, not only in Pennsylvania, but across the country, and have been very successful at helping those school districts facilitate those plans. We did check a number of references, and they were all very positive. They have a really good track record, again, of bringing the stakeholders together and developing buy-in for the program. And we also feel that bringing somebody national in will really bring some of those ideas from outside of the state that we can use and incorporate into this plan. Because if we look at our test scores compared to our peers in Pennsylvania, we're already scoring at that level. So we need to think a little bit outside of the box as far as developing some new initiatives moving forward. This packet, you can read it at your convenience, but if you go back to the second to the last page, there's a calendar here actually laying out the whole process, and you can see that there's a significant amount of community and staff involvement in this entire process from start to finish. The proposal here would be to start this sometime in January and then have this done by May so that we can really incorporate all the recommendations from this plan, not only into our financial recovery plan, but also into our 18-19 budget, so that we'll really be able to hit the ground running in 18-19 and start to implement some of these things. The last page is the current proposal for fees. We're still kind of working through that with them. There's a possibility to maybe reduce that by $5,000 to $10,000, depending on different options we select. But the proposal that they have here tonight is $96,700. I'm still working with some of our community partners. I'm hoping to get a chunk of this really funded through grants. But if everybody is comfortable with us moving forward and starting to negotiate that and obtain some funding, what I'd like to do is propose that we finalize everything and bring it to you in January, and that if anything is not funded by a grant or a contribution, that the difference be paid for out of the Pepsi funds. We still have $342,000 left in that fund, and it's something that the board did designate years ago for community type events and things like this. So I think this would fall very nicely with that, and it wouldn't be taxpayer dollars that were funding the program. Yes, please.
Anybody have anything before we ask that? Go ahead, hold on.
Thank you. Some of these things, like the customized surveys for the students, teachers, and parents, can't we solicit the Jefferson Society, who is an expert in research on education, rather than going with these people, if they could collaborate with this performance map, generate probably the same type of questions. So rather than us even anticipating an increased expense, utilizing the services from Jefferson that is made available to us because of our specific pilot.
It's certainly something we can explore. I can make a few phone calls and see if that.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's my own impression, and I think that we're really going to be utilizing JPS on their agreement with this. Shame on us. So this may be an area where they can contribute and also save us money at the same time.
I guess my final comment would be that I think this is a good issue. Where I don't sure right now we're kind of coming out with a clean slate. And I think it's pretty interesting that smart decisions over the next few years, and I think that, especially if a lot of this is going to be paid for, we get some money and then the money that the board will set aside. I would think this would be a great utilization.
Brian, what school districts in particular have you reached out to or discussed this program?
There was a school district in Washington State that utilized them. They were, I think this was their second time through. They actually felt that they were good at following through on the implementation. The superintendent there said that he would not be disappointed with the way they facilitate the program, but also they said that it's, and my big concern was that this would be a document that we do and throw on the shelf and forget about. She said she had the same exact concern, but it's really driven a lot of their budget and educational decisions over the last couple of years and shown results as far as their scores. They're focused on things that are very similar to us, like improving the graduation rate and getting primary literacy up and running. So a lot of similarities there. State College is another school district that I spoke to. That superintendent, they actually utilized this firm twice for their plan. And the thing about State College, he said it was pretty difficult to get all the stakeholders together because it is a college town and yet there's a lot of educational professionals with a lot of opinions. So they were very helpful in bringing all those ideas together and putting together a document that really worked for them. And then B spoke to another school district. Kansas City.
Same thing, they were very pleased with everything, that from start to finish, and then it was that quality part that got so many people that were a part of it, then it was the buy-in of everyone, all the stakeholders bought into it.
Say why they had to go through the second time?
Because they successfully implemented their first plan. So this was 5 years after that plan was done and they were ready to move to the next level and plan for the following 5 years.
So in essence, I'm just, but in essence, I mean, like you said, we've had strategic plans in the past, and they got printed up and put on a wall, or we put them out there, all the schools, put them on a wall, I remember doing it. But, so what you're saying though is that this, at that time, when we did that strategic plan, it was more or less our administration putting it together. This is more of a reaching out to the community, to different aspects, and putting that together in that way so that as we move forward, in essence, we have more people to say, don't just let that hang on the wall, because I was involved in doing this, so they're going to be able to put pressure on us to keep moving forward. I like that.
What are you going to do from there?
Everybody's comfortable and I'll just move forward and keep you updated as things develop and hopefully have something for you to build on at the January meeting so we can start.
Having said that, I'd like to at least explore Bob's idea. I'm not saying to go for one or the other, but if we have resources, we'll see. Can they do something? And one, do they, capable? If they're not capable, then it's not possible. If they're capable, then just kind of compare it. This is what we have, is that something that you're willing and able to do? Guess we're kind of that.
Okay, we're running late, so, does anybody have anything with new business? If not, then we're going to executive session for legal matters.